All right, and we are now recording. So what we are wanting to do today is to go through the different parts and pieces just to make sure everybody has thought of everything needed for the end of year process. Because when we have those things that are one time a year, it's very easy to forget a step. It's going to happen. We are humans, and for the most part, PowerSchool is very forgiving and we can make corrections. There are a few things that there is a point of no return, and we will talk about those. So let me start out like I always do with my recordings to say that this should be used for training purposes only, that no real students or staff information is going to be shared, as we are using a training server full of fake data, and any likeness to any real student is purely coincidental in this case. So we've been sharing, and Kendall just shared again, the link to this data calendar for everyone, because this really has all of the links you're going to need for everything that I'm going to talk about today. So today starts our 1 week window that we have across the state to perform the end of year process. Now, I have gotten a ton of emails over the last couple of weeks since school has gotten out about graduates, and a lot of districts are saying, Stacy, my graduates are not showing up in the cohort tile. What's wrong? What did I do? You haven't done anything wrong. Remember that the end of year process is the process that actually moves all of our kids for us. So you should have every kid prepped either in a promotion status, a retention status, or a graduation status. And when we press that end of year button, what it's going to do is take all of those prep work that you did and go ahead and create those exit codes for this year and create a new enrollment record for next year, or a new enrollment record over in graduated students for your seniors or possibly AAA students who are graduating. So what I want to do is kind of first go down through, gotta go the other way on my dual screen here. Scroll down to June, because this is where the big meat of all of our information is. So the first thing that I want to direct you to is the actual Alabama end of year document. And I know that there's been quite a few trainings, excuse me, y'all, from the PowerSchool side nationwide going through end of year. And for the most part, we align, I'm going to say 95% in what we have to do with Alabama and what they do with the core product. There are a few extra steps that we have in Alabama that other users don't have because of our cross-enrollment functionality and some other functionality. Plus, we are an anomaly in the PowerSchool world in Alabama in that we have to run end of year prior to doing our state reports. Many other users of PowerSchool out in the United States and internationally actually have their state reports built in PowerSchool, so they have to run them, then perform end of year. So when you go and read the community forums and things such as that, and you see that comment of, hey, make sure you do your state reporting prior to end of year, that doesn't apply to us, because there are certain things that have to be created inside of PowerSchool before end of year is run, because end of year ends things. For example, homeless data, attendance data, those things lock after end of year, and there's no backing up to correct anything after that point. So you have to make sure all of that is finished ahead of time. Now, for some of the best practice information, such as, making sure you have your schedule committed before end of year, that is best practice and what we try to get everyone to do. However, there are help guides to assist you in still using Power Scheduler into the summer if you need to reopen that back up because you weren't able to commit before end of year. It's not a problem. There are some extra steps, and we just try to get you to do it ahead of time to avoid those extra steps. So what I want to do first is come over here and actually let's jump into this end of year link, which is going to take you to our Alabama PowerSchool site. If you do not have this site linked, like the overall site bookmarked on your computer, I highly recommend bookmarking it, because this is where you can find tutorials and updates on everything. We're going to spend a lot of time this summer finalizing all the updates for the new enhanced user interface that will be coming to everyone into June, beginning of July. So if your district has not swapped over, we'll be slating to get that update pressed out after everybody finishes state reporting. So I'm looking at either the end of June or the first week of July. So all the updates will be made on here. So this right here again is our calendar letting us know, you wanted to try to have some stuff done by yesterday so that if you decide to run end of year today, it has time to replicate up to AIM. Now, I'm going to caution y'all 100,000% on this right here. If your people are working on homeless data, if your people are working on attendance data and they have made some changes, before you press that end of year button, please make sure that you have them go into AIM to see that all of those changes replicated. Don't press any buttons for end of year, and don't press any buttons for certification of those other tiles, whether it's your SWTA tile, your SIR tile, your cohort, CCR, which I know you're not certifying those right now, but data is being frozen in those, and we'll talk about those. Make sure that you are looking for those changes in AIM before you take that next step, because if you decide to go ahead and take that next step without seeing the data changed in AIM, that data freezes as soon as you do these things. And so those changes, even though you made them, will never make it up to the state level. So we always caution everyone with that. All right, so scrolling down through here, this is the actual Alabama end of year process webinar that we did last year that is still very relevant for today. So it walks you through the actual entire end of year process if you want to go back and look at that. And I know the end of year process seems like a big, bad, scary thing. It's really not. I promise you, it's a one button push. And as long as you've prepped everything ahead of time, you're going to be all good. And even few mistakes that might happen can be corrected. So here's the guide that I want to start out with here, which is this Alabama version of our end of year process. And it looks just like one that you would find if you went out into community, but notice the title of this says AL. I probably need to update that in the name right here so that you know it's Alabama specific. But this is going to take you step by step through all of the things that you'll need to do. I tell you what's a recommendation versus what is required, because with us being in Alabama, there are some things that are slightly different, as I mentioned earlier. So going through here, it tells you, hey, there are going to be some things that are removed. So certain reports you will want to run. There are certain tables that are cleared out. There are certain tables that don't clear out, but yet you can't run the report on them for current year or past year like you're used to. People always ask, well, what kind of reports do I need to run? I would say anything that you typically use very heavily, I would go ahead and run and make and save that file somewhere. Run that PDF, that Excel file, whatever you need. Most of the reports under system reports are for current year only and whatever you're looking at, and they don't run when you flip back to a last year. It's still going to pull current data. I highly recommend that everybody print out their seniors transcripts. Put them in the Cume folder, put them somewhere for them so that you have that final one. A class ranking report, because once we roll over class ranking, those kids go into grade 99 and you can't pull that rank on them anymore. That we did put a field in there on the Alabama custom screen beside the graduation date where if you wanted to input that data so you have a place to store it, you can. That way you can pull it back to a report card. Here is basically your to-do list, your preparation. Notice when some says optional recommended. Right here, when you get into these, it will tell you whether it is optional or if it's recommended. And I will tell you up here if it's not needed for us, even though this is the guide that comes straight from PowerSchool. I'm telling you that because we're hosted, you don't have to worry about pulling a backup unless you just want to put in a support ticket to get one. Not really anything you can do with it unless you have like an external database that you have stood up yourself to put it on there, but there's really no need because PowerSchool keeps these backups for us. School enrollment, section enrollments. I'm not going to read this bit by bit. I will say for these, where like on this one where it says print reports, and I take you to knowledge base articles, it's real important to take a look at those articles because it will give you way more information on there than I wanted to put in this document to make it 100 pages long. We didn't want to do that. So make sure that you take a look because it says, yes, you probably want to run some of your big reports, but if you click in here, it will delineate and tell you what attendance reports won't work and what will and things such as that so that you can know if you need to print and save any of those. Now, one of the biggest things is to make sure that you do have next school year already ready. So hopefully because of scheduling, everybody has gone into the years and terms and gone ahead and set up the 24-25 year with a start date and an end date. One thing that you need to make sure of is that your current school year has an end date of a date prior to we running this end of year process. I know a lot of people have tried to create STCs that go all the way through like July 31st, and you can't do that. I saw some people that after all the information came out about the schedules or the rostering class for Unified Insights for the summer camps, they went in and adjusted their years and terms to actually run the length of their summer camp, which goes through July. You can't do that. Your end of year years and terms has to end before you run the end of your process or you're going to get some errors in there. So if you have been changing those dates, You could run into some issues with some section enrollment audits and things like that that will pop up on some of these other reports. All right, let's go back over here. So what are the things that we need to make sure that we're doing inside of PowerSchool? So the two things that, if you are a familiar user with this data calendar right here, is to run these two, the school enrollment audit and the system enrollment audit. I've got the old UI and the new UI links inside of here. So I want to pop over in here. Oops. In my pilot site, go to data and reporting, reports, and system reports. I'm going to scroll down to the membership area, and I'm going to see school enrollment audit and section enrollment audit. Now, like I said, these should actually be checked on a monthly basis because section enrollment audits can actually cause issues with grades being stored. And so you want to make sure that those are kind of kept up. But if you haven't been, they really need to be fixed before end of year because of how it looks at attendance and stuff across your sections. So first, let's start with the school enrollment audit. Now, if you have not done any cleanup in any of these, you might have tons of these from past years of where we've pulled in. There's two types of errors on this page right here. There are students who have enrollment date misalignments, and there's students who have no schedules whatsoever. So what you want to do is definitely check if you have a kid on any of these lists who haven't had a schedule, because that could be a potential no-show that nobody ever realized because they weren't in a class to say, hey, this kid's not here, and you've been riding them all year with an attendance or a membership record. If they have enrollment date overlaps or mishaps, well, that means that you're going to need to go into the student and see what's going on with the actual school enrollment. So if I just click on one of the students on the list, I can look, and what I want to do is see, do I see duplication? And many of these are also throwing you an error over in official state collections and AIM with overlapping enrollments within your district. You kind of have to look for them. Sometimes it's a few days overlap, and sometimes it's something like this where I have an exact overlap in days, a 1/8/21 to 1/7/21 and a 1/8/21 to 1/27/21. If it's a complete duplicate like this, then I don't need both of these in here. I can actually go into the one under previous enrollments, scroll to the bottom of this, and delete, because it's a complete overlap and I only need one record in that table. If it was only a few day overlap, like let's say I have one district that enrolled on 1/8 to 5/24, but the other district said that they were there from beginning of August to 1/10, so there's a couple day overlap. Because those that came out of other districts are not able to be corrected in the UI part of this right here, because there's not going to be an FTE value associated with it, those records will need to be corrected through the re-enrollments table. And I do have a video over on YouTube. I'll pull it up. Right here. I'll copy and I'll throw this in the chat. But you can also just go to the YouTube channel and see it listed in the all the videos. But that right there will tell you how you would need to go in. Now, this is probably going to be your district PowerSchool administrator who's going to have to do this, that has access to DDA to be able to get into that re-enrollments table and make those changes. So those are school enrollment records that you want to make sure you take a look at. And if it's a very long list with very old records from past years, you really don't have to address the past years right now because they're not going to affect the end of year. The problem is, if you've got thousands of them like I do here, it's going to be hard to find those ones that are relevant to this year without kind of sorting through them. So I tell people, one thing you want to do is really dedicate some time to eventually knock these out. And I will be completely honest. When I was at Opelika and did this, I had thousands of errors. And Daniel, it's just like you said, they came from the iNow import. The re-enrollments table was the worst import that we had. It duplicated and had all kind of wrong dates for people. each day I would just put 10 minutes in my schedule and I would just see how many I could get cleaned up in 10 minutes. And it took me about 3 weeks to get all of it cleaned up. So you eventually are going to have to, or you're going to want to dedicate time to that, because if not, then you're never going to be able to get to a year where you have a clean run to be able to see what your just this year errors are. Heather, what's the best practice if we're unable to get a district to assist us with resolving an overlap? If you're not getting any, if you've emailed them and they're not giving you anything back, Heatherly, CC me in that email, because I will contact someone at district office in that district to be able to assist you. I'm happy to do that. All right, now let me go back to the system reports and let's talk about the second report. I don't want to go to that one. Let's go back. And I'm going to scroll back down to my membership and enrollment, and I want to go to this one, the section audit report. Now, this is the one that's going to list students enrolled in school but not in any classes. Now, this could be legit, and this could be not okay. So, Phyllis, you actually just have one that's one of the legit regions. You said the students listed with no classes are students that were remotely enrolled. Are those okay to ignore? So when you say remotely enrolled, they were taking courses at, so maybe I'm a student at Alabama Middle School, but I'm taking all of my courses at another school in the district. So it's showing me as I no classes for my enrollment school and middle school. That's perfectly okay. That is okay to have, because you know your kids and you know that you have them in classes somewhere. Now, when you say you have a number of 4999 students listed with no schedule, that's a different story, because those kids should actually have schedules. If they're in 4999, that means they're a services only school student, and we have those services classes. So there is that pre-K class that they should be in if it's things for like OTPT, such as that. We also have the speech, the hearing, and the vision services classes. So all of the 4999 students should have a schedule. And if they don't, that could be one of the reasons that you might have seen issues with TS Gold. Robert, what if the 4990 students are there because they're being evaluated and haven't been placed? Robert, in that case, most of the people are putting them all in that early childhood pre-K class. And then if they end up just not being, if they're not referred is not the right word, but if they're not active after the referral process, then you just withdraw them out of that. All right, let me scroll down through all these, because I'll tell you I do have some junk data in here. Let me scroll down to where we actually look at the section enrollments. Okay, so here is where our biggest stuff comes in. Students with course date misalignments with school enrollments. And y'all, this is very easy to happen. Like, I mean, very easy thing to happen right here. Because how many times do we have a student come in, they enroll with us, let's say they enroll on a Wednesday, and the parents say, hey, we're filling out all the paperwork, we're not going to start school till Monday. Like, great. I'm going to put your paperwork in on Monday. Or we go ahead and pre-register you in on Monday. So you go ahead and put them in PowerSchool today, and you go ahead and put the schedule in, and you forget to change the date to Monday's date. So now you've got a schedule that starts on Wednesday with a school enrollment that starts on Monday. That's what happens. Or we all know how crazy the first day of school is. You know, you got all your schedules ready, and then all of a sudden here's 100 new students out of the blue that are coming to you on the first day of school. And so you are, you know, getting them enrolled so you can get them into PowerSchool, but maybe you don't put their schedule in that day. You wait 2 days later to put their schedule in, and again, you forget to change their schedule date. So you've got a misalignment with enrollment date and section dates. That's what these are. And this is where you can very much have issues with storing grades if you have errors in this area of this screen. So if I look at Alyssa Mouse right here, so the first line tells you the school enrollment record. So it says this student was enrolled an entry date of 4/2/24 with an exit date of August 1st, 24. Now, y'all remember, I have to run my pilot all through the summer so I can do summer training. So y'all will never have this situation where it ends like this. Yours will always end in May. Mine won't. But we can still use this for purposes. Now, look at the section. So remember, she did not start with me until April 2nd. But when I look at her courses, when I enrolled her into her classes, I didn't change a start date and it defaulted to August 1st, August 1st, January 1st. That's a misalignment. If I didn't start school until April 2nd, then these start dates cannot be until April 2nd. And so that's what you have to look for any student. It's dates up here that misalign with dates down here. Same thing right here with Dolly. So Dolly enrolled on January 8th. But when I look at the schedule was entered to start on January 1st. So which one of those do you fix? Well, to be honest, only you or your counselor is going to know the answer to that because we don't know which one is incorrect. Did they actually enroll on the 8th or did they enroll on the 1st? Whichever one is correct, you leave it and you adjust the other. So maybe it was that they actually did show up on January 1st. We just didn't put them in until the 8th. And we forgot to change the enrollment date. Well, then I would need to come up here and go into this student's enrollment history and change that date. Or maybe the 8th is correct. So these dates are wrong. So in that case, I'm going to have to go look at their all enrollments under courses and programs, and I'm going to have to change that entry date to say 1/8. So if you have any under there, you definitely want to make sure that those get adjusted. So any questions on the school enrollment or the section enrollment pages, because you want to take care of those. Y'all have any, feel free to put them in chat. All right, now let's get into the stuff that you need to make sure that you have entered in here so that you have it captured for state reporting. So the next checkbox here is to review your list of homeless students and finalize before the end of year. So notice I give you hyperlinks on this. So in this hyperlink, I'm showing you a picture of our homeless report. So if you look over in homeless in AIM, in the AIM tile, and you're like, I know I have more students and they're not showing up, what's wrong? When you go to a student, and I'm just going to go to my favorite Mickey Mouse and go to the compliance and federal programs page. Here is homeless. There's quite a few boxes on the homeless page. However, it takes a correct combination of 3 boxes for them to actually count as a homeless student. Homeless type, valid school year, and served by. So we know that when end of year rollover occurs, for our homeless students, it takes every student, regardless of their status, and flips them all back to be potential for the upcoming school year. So with that potential, you have to then reevaluate homeless for the next year. So what you've got to make sure is that you have everybody correct this year to be captured in AIM before end of year rollover. Things that throw people off, if they go in next year, go, oh yes, Mickey is verified, but they forget to update and this still says 22-23, then it will not be showing over in AIM and you have to go and find that. So you want to look for misalignments. If you have somebody that is verified and you know they should be homeless showing up in AIM, you need to check that their valid school year is the current school year, and you need to check that they have a residency status established. You have to have one of these 4 marked in there. And if you're like, well, I need to look at all of my kids to see who might have this, well, we've got you on that. In your enterprise reports, so I'm going to go to data reporting, reports, and enterprise reports. And y'all know the trick with searching, because this is a very big page right here, is to do Control F and just type in what you're looking for. So I'm looking for homeless, and here is my homeless enrolled student report. So if I want to look at who I have marked as verified, I can do this one of 2 ways. I can actually click on these up here, or I can filter on these right here. So if I said, okay, show me everybody I have verified. All right, so I've only got 1 student. So my expectation is to only have 1 student. But if I know I should have more students, then that means I have not marked somebody as verified that should be. Then what I want to check is, do they have the valid school year? And do they have our residency status? So this is a way that you can look, especially in our large districts, across all of your students that you have marked verified, to make sure that you have all of these should say 23, 24. So imagine I had 50 kids on this list. I could look to see if something else other than 23, 24 pops up right here. That means I've got somebody with the wrong date. I can select it and then go know who I need to go fix. Same thing right here. If I want to look to say, okay, who doesn't have anything at all, I could go and search for any nulls inside of there. These have to be entered, and you have to give the overnight for this data to populate to AIM before you press the end of your process button. Last year, we saw quite a few districts where they came in that morning, entered all their homeless information, and then at 3 o'clock that evening, they pressed end of year. Well, that homeless information change did not have a chance to get up to AIM, and so their homeless data was never captured. And like I said, there's no going back to that. So one of the things you want to do, whoever's in charge of homeless at your school, is you want to make sure that you've got all that data in there and that it has replicated overnight into AIM. Go check your homeless tile before you press that end of year button. Cindy, what about the error that says student was in fall count but not 9 month? So those 99% of the time, there's nothing you can do about those. There are very few ones where it's a legit, like you've hit an enrollment, like you deleted part of the enrollment. Most of them, when you look at the situation of the kid, is a kid that you ended up no showing or withdrawing out on a date before the third Friday in October, but you didn't do it until after the third Friday in October, which means the student was actually captured in your 20-day report. But then when somebody went in and withdrew them out after the 20-day report, it took them out, so they're not seeing them in the whole year. Every kid, your 9-month report should include every kid who was enrolled in your district at any point in time during the school year. So if you have a kid that has completely disappeared from your 9-month report but was on fall, that's an issue because you did get funding for them in fall. There's nothing you can do to correct that error because it's stating there was an error in the fall count. That error will not prevent you from doing end of year, nor will it prevent you from certifying your other tiles. But you do have to have conversations with your registrars to make sure that you are withdrawing out all of the kids who did not come at all prior to that third Friday in October, or else this will happen each year. Lana, can you tell me again where to go to change the section enrollment date? Sure. Let me pull up Mickey. I'm losing my mouse here. So if I look at my courses and programs, under registration is course registration. If you are in the old UI, it's still called all enrollments. But on this course registrations page, this is where I see all of the different sections, whether they've been dropped or whether they are active. And this is where if I notice that there is a date discrepancy, like if this should have said 1 and not 2 or something like that, I could go into edit right here and I would be able to adjust the date of those sections. And you want to make sure those are right because remember, attendance captures back from your section enrollments. Sherry, after you finish end of year, will you be able to work in PowerSchool? And if any changes are made in special programs for IEPs, will the changes hold? Yes, Sherry. That all other things, all other areas can still be worked on up until that state snapshot on the 21st. So you are good there. There's really two things. That's going to be your homeless, and that's going to be attendance. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. Attendance is the other thing that really can't be updated any further after your end of year process. Diana, residency status, valid school year, and what are the other two you're looking for on the enterprise report? I also have several that are in the report but say non-homeless. Most are teachers' kids that do not live in the district. So I don't know why you've got those marked as anything inside of there, but the other, let's go back to the federal programs page. So it's homeless type. So only if they are verified along with valid school year and residency status, will they move over in there? Carrie, should students who are graduating that were in special programs be made inactive until we roll over on the SIS side? Our special programs person stated she was told that she needed to make them inactive, but I have a level on error on level data. Some of those students are grade 14. So yeah, that level data error actually is going to go away as soon as you process end of year on those students. There's not a way to exclude them from that at that point in time. We're just kind of in that limbo period from the end of school to when they inactivate them until we roll them over and it graduates them out, and then that error will go away. Nicole, how would you correct current enrollment 2021 and old enrollment 21-22? It's likely they got reverted. So, Nicole, if you are very comfortable with DDA, you can go in and readjust those enrollment records and put the correct dates across the ones that should be, or you can simply enter in a PowerSchool support ticket and they'll help you get that changed. With the end of year and everybody having so much to do, it is perfectly okay for y'all to put in PowerSchool support tickets to get help with some of these issues. All right, let's keep going down our list. Identify the summer withdrawals to be processed after state has completed EOI. So remember, we shouldn't be enrolling or withdrawing any students right now, especially if those students are anywhere in the state for the enrollment side. Now, I know some people have gone ahead and started putting in their kindergarten students for next year. That's fine as long as they don't have a state locator record. But you want to hold on your withdrawals because you've not processed end of year, which means you haven't promoted, retained, or graduated them. There is a very, very small exception window to that. Oh, and one of my screens just went blank, y'all. There we go. A very small exception window to that. That is STCs. If you have an STC that is moving a kid, like last week, then yeah, you do need to let them go so that STC can pick them up. The STC, the district that STC is in, will actually process that promotion retention as part of that district's end of year process. So that is perfectly okay. So that's the one caveat to that rule of don't let them go. Now, be careful how you talk to parents and principals about that, I'm going to say. Because I have had some very angry phone calls from parents going, hey, this district won't let me withdraw my kids. Y'all, if a parent comes to you and says, hey, I'm withdrawing to go to so-and-so, you give them whatever paperwork you need to, and you say, yes, ma'am, we'll get all this taken care of. You just don't put it in PowerSchool yet. And when they go to their new district and you say, well, I can't enroll you yet, but they're wanting to play football or whatever, don't sit there and say, oh, I can't enroll you. You go ahead and give them the paperwork. You let them fill out whatever paperwork to indicate that they're going to be a bona fide move. And then when rollover happens and I send the green light email across the state, then you can put them in PowerSchool. So when we say don't enroll, don't withdraw, it doesn't mean don't interact with the parents. It just means don't put them in PowerSchool yet. Don't take them out of PowerSchool yet. You can go ahead and facilitate the process to get these kids the paperwork and information they need to withdraw or enroll. Just don't put them in PowerSchool until after everybody across the state has done end of year. That way we're not pulling incomplete records across the state. So I tell everybody, set those in a pile to the side for the go-ahead email. Next step, identify any students with mismatches in enrollment and FTE years. And y'all, this is one, it's an enterprise report that we have for you. And you will definitely want to take a look at this because we see a lot of these happen here at the end of the school year when districts have pre-registered kindergarten students. They'll pre-register them and accidentally be in this school year but use next year's dates. Well, whatever year you are in PowerSchool, so when I am in this drop down right here, that's the FTE ID that gets assigned to those students. When that happens and it's the wrong year, it will cause atrocious issues with attendance calculations and ADM counts. Some districts have seen some of this when they look over at their absences, that chronic absenteeism tile over in Unified Insights. Some people were looking at the chronically absent and they filtered by those who had the most absences. And there were people showing like negative ADA. 100% of the time, those are going to point back to you having some FTE issues in there. Either a student wasn't assigned an FTE value at all, or they have the wrong FTE ID. So if I were to go here, so I'm on my enterprise report. Again, I'm going to use my control F and look up FTE until I find this report here, entry date, FTE, year mismatch. And I don't know if I have any, but we're going to see. So if I look at 23-24, I don't have any right here. Let's see if I've got any from like old years just to show you an example. I might have to, here we go. So here, this is telling me the student enrolled in 21, left in 21. So this was, again, y'all know my years are different from y'all's because of the pilot. But it says the term first day was this, last was this, and currently this is what the FTE ID is and what it should be. And it's academic by 22. So I've got them enrolled in the year 22 with 21 dates. So something got really messed up with that kid. I would say that's probably just a really bad data on my side in the pilot. Y'all probably won't have that solution. Let's see. Where's my little screenshot? That's that same one. I did send an email out. It's probably been a few months ago for most people to go ahead and start looking at these. And I know a lot of districts did a lot of this cleanup. So this one should not be as bad of a cleanup for you as what we have seen in the past. Let me reopen that tab. What if the withdrawals are entered in PowerSchool? Can this be corrected? Yes, anything can be corrected in there on that record. You would just need to go into the enrollment history of that student and make any corrections to those. So if I go to school enrollment and enrollment history, if I'm seeing that there are errors with this, if the dates are wrong, I can correct those here. Now, if FTE ID is wrong, y'all, that is a student field value. And if you needed to check the FTE, like let's say Mickey Mouse showed up on that report and I needed to see what the FTE should be. We all know the little trick to go up here in the URL and where you see FRM, you type MCR, Master Control Record. This shows you the table view of this student. And if I scroll down right here to FTE ID, notice it says 501. Okay. So I'm in the 23-24 year and it says 501. Is that correct? Well, you can search, and there's quite a few reports out there. I know there's a really good free plugin from MBA that's an enrollment audit plugin that will tell you if you have kids with the wrong FTE ID and just point them out to you and tell you what it should be. But if you realize that, the FTE ID for this student's 501 and it should be 307, then what you would do is find that student as your current selection. So Mickey's my current selection. And through student field values, and I always scroll past it because they changed student field values with the new UI. The field I want to change is literally FTE ID. And if it's supposed to be 307, I just type 307 here, hit submit, and hit submit again. So to update any of those incorrect FTE IDs is a very easy process through student field value changes. Now, I'm not going to update it because 501 is actually what he should be using. One, suggested date for exit date for the summer. So one, most people use July 1 just to keep it consistent. You do want to use a date in July. So any time for our summer withdrawals, you want that to be a July date because all of us starting in August, if you roll them into August, you're going to start getting those overlaps and end up in an E99 tangle at the beginning of school. And we don't want to do that. So we do suggest that if you are processing out your summer withdrawals, use a July date on them. Amanda, if we had a $49.99 student who was referred in May but did not qualify for services in August, and this student shows, what would be the solution? So if you are referring students and they do not qualify, then you need to withdraw them out. And remember, and I'm going to let's go back into Mickey. There is a withdrawal exit code that's specific for those students. So if I go to Mickey, school enrollment, and let's just pretend like we're going to transfer them out. There is an exit code. Now, there's the exit preschool under mandatory age. So if it's a preschool student in your services only pre-K, you can use that. If it's a services only student that's actually coming from a private school that you're servicing, you would do the exit private school services. Either one of those could be used for that, but that's what you would need to do if you have a student who qualifies, or excuse me, who is referred but does not qualify. And I do see this quite a bit being left out across the state, y'all. So make sure that you're communicating with whoever it is who's enrolling the kids in $49.99 for referrals to make sure they understand if they do not become an active SPED student to receive services, they do need to withdraw them out. Perfect. All right, let's go back through. Oh, Jack, you just asked. Hang on, let me scroll. My screens are not playing fun with me today. Oh, that was in a direct message. How do you find the correct FTE-ID? So there's a couple of ways to do it. The easiest way, and now let's see if I remember the report. If you have the PSCB reports bundle, there is let me find it. This validation set of reports, there is a FTE setup. And it is great because it tells you the FTE ID for all of your schools. Notice they all have a different one. So my school 55 is my Alabama high school. So notice it said the FTE ID should be 501. So all the kids should have 501 for the FTE in that school. Now watch this. When I scroll to next year, so maybe it's, that I enrolled a kindergartner for next year, but I did it in this year, so they have the wrong FTE ID, and I need to know what their FTE ID should be for the 24-25 year because they accidentally got the 23-24 school year. All I do is I change that year up here, and now it tells me for my primary school, the FTE should be 751. So if they accidentally, let's go back to this year, got 551 assigned, all I would do is use student field values to update it to the 751 or whatever it was. Does that make sense to everyone on how to find that? And if you do not have this report installed and need it, just shoot me an email. I can send you the link to all of the plugins so that y'all have those to install. Daniel, can we withdraw those 49.99 students now, or do we need to wait? Are those 49.99 students that did not receive services, Daniel? Is that what you're talking about? They didn't become active through the referral? Yes. So if all of them, if you have a list of them that didn't get picked up for services, go ahead and withdraw those out. The reason I ask that is because there has been a false rumor out there that we say that you've got to withdraw your Tim Tebow and your foreign exchange students out at the end of the year because they don't need to process their end of year. And a lot of people extended that over into $49.99 private school kids, and that is not the case. You leave those kids in there unless they are not receiving services anymore. That's the only time you take them out. If you have your pre-K kids who are a -1 who should be going to kindergarten, you are going to need to make sure that you have those kids prepped for next school year to be kindergarten and next school to be whatever it is. And let me show you this because I've had quite a few, let me go to $49.99, emails this week from districts to say, hey, I'm trying to set next school for my 4999 kids, but it's not giving me the school to choose. Well, inside of here, and I'm just going to go up here and use the search bar to show y'all that is an easy way to find the pages in here. Look up next school. There is a page called Next School Indicator. This is the list of schools that show in the drop down when you are working with your students to say, all right, Stacey Royster is a pre-K kid who will go into my elementary school's kindergarten next year. So I need to set that person up to be grade 0 next year, and next school should be Alabama primary school. If you have not set this up at $49.99, you just come in here, you type new, and whatever school in your district, if you've got 3 primary schools that they might be going to, then you'd set all 3 of them up so that when you're in this school, and I think maybe I've got some kids in here, yeah, I do. If I've got this kid and my brain just absolutely left. They changed the name. Scheduling settings. See, that's why I love that search bar when I can't remember where it's at. Courses and programs, scheduling settings. There we go. Next year grade, if they need to be kindergarten, and next school indicator is they're going to, my elementary school, then I set that. Otherwise, I just bump them up. If they're a -3, they're going to become a -2, and they're going to stay in $49.99. So you just make sure that you have them in whichever way they are going to go so that they're prepped, because if not, they're going to show up on our validation report we're going to talk about in just a minute. My new messages. So yeah, if you have any, Daniel, that haven't received services at all, you want to work with your special ed person to see what's the date they finished the referral, because really the withdrawal date needs to be backdated to whatever that date was. Patrick, would there be a reason after rollover that there would be a number of students that are missing full-time equivalency? Quite possibly. If the FTEs were not set up to include a specific grade level, then they could be going in blank, and that's a huge issue because it affects your DAV calculations. So you want to find those and make sure you get those entered. I got an error that the student is enrolled in another school within the given entry and exit date when trying to change a section enrollment. Will I need to call the other school? Yes, and there are quite a few times that you might see overlapping messages over in your official state collections where the parents didn't communicate the right withdrawal date to you, and maybe it was that the district they were leaving didn't know that they were withdrawing until 3 days after you had already enrolled them, and they need to move that date back 3 days. So you just kind of have to have a conversation back and forth with you and that other district. Charlene, if the students are being withdrawn from $49.99 today for prior to the end of school, do I need to wait until tomorrow to roll over, or can I do it tonight? I would if you are making any changes, I would always give overnight time to replicate those changes to the state, then to do rollover. Perfect. All right, so FTE, one thing to check. All right, validation reports. Now, these are different SQL reports. Inside of UI, this will tell you if you have issues with courses, teachers, things such as that. I tell you how to get to it in the new UI and the old UI. It's under the special operations, but in the new UI, it's that special data operations. So let me go back here. These are part of that checklist inside of the Alabama PowerSchool end of year process. So this will take you through there, but I just want to make sure that you understand where this is at and what to do. Special data operations. So Bill, there's not a reset on that Apex password. What you do is you go to your staff profile, and where you have the box checked to give yourself access to Apex, uncheck it, submit, so it takes the access away. Then go back to the page, recheck it, and it'll pop the password box up blank, and you put in a new password. That's basically what you do. Perfect. Been a minute. Yeah, that's one thing that's like really, really weird. What am I looking for? Oh, data validation. I told y'all my brain is not all firing today. Data validation reports. So when you go to run these, you're just going to choose data validation reports. You're not going to worry about putting any of that other information in there, and you're going to hit submit. Give it a second to run because it's going to start out with no reports, and then you're going to get all of these. Now, just because it's there does not mean there is an actual issue. So if I go, what you'll need to do is click each one of these, generate it, and yep, you want to display headers so that you can see what the data is. Let it run. It usually runs pretty instantly, and then view. In this case, I've got headers. I've got no errors. So you'll want to run each one of those. You want to see if you get any errors on any of them. If you do, notice I have a link right here on how to correct any issues listed. I'm taking you to, and you are going to have access over to the community to read this, but it will tell you how to address and what to look for in each one of those. Those reports, some of them are very instinctive and you figure out exactly what it's telling you to do, and some do not. So once you run, it will tell you how to look them and what to do to correct them. So this is going to be your best friend if when you run those reports, you actually get data in here. Most of the time, I'll be honest, very rarely have I gotten something that's an error inside of there. That would show like issues in the actual database itself. Next on the list, and y'all, this is huge. I think I've got it here and I've got it here. Have you stored grades? Have you stored grades for all terms for all of your schools? Because once you perform end of year, you cannot store grades for anything last year anymore. So you've got to make sure that you understand that. You cannot store after you have performed the end of year process. You would have to do a convoluted PowerSchool have to help export out of the current grades table to import into the stored grades table. And it never fails each year. There'll be some school that just has forgotten to store grades and you've already pressed that end of year button. So before you do that, please check with all of your schools. And if you have to, go to a kid and see that you see historical grades for quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, F1, whatever it is your grading buckets, that you have grades in there. Because if not, they need to store before you press that button. You are going to want to run reports to make sure that your grades are not out of sync. You don't want to say that you stored grades and a kid had an 82, but yet when I look in the teacher grade book, they've got a 93. That means the teacher went in and put some kind of grade in, and you need to look for those discrepancies. There's multiple ways to look for out of sync grades. We've got some great enterprise reports for that. We also have some great PSCB reports for that, and they're all called out of sync grades. So I would definitely take a look at those. Update object reports. Really, this can be done after end of year to make sure that, if you've got something coded specifically with dates for the school year, like attendance, that you would want to update those after you run end of year. And here's a big one, attendance. How many of your principals have been going through and like looking at attendance at kids to see if there's anything missed that could be corrected? Like, maybe a kid has a 504 and they were going to a doctor's office for some therapy and they had been coding all of those as doctor's excuse when they should have coded them as SP and gotten credit for those. If you or anybody has made any changes to attendance after your last day of school, you are going to need to make sure to run the refresh Premier Views attendance function. Now let me show you where this is at. Let me go to the high school. That function is going to recalculate the DAV values because those will not automatically update after the last day of your school year. We can still generate them by doing this manual process right here. And then once you press the end of year button, that's it. No more changes can be made to attendance because after you press the end of year button, DAV calculations swap over to the next school year at that point. So if y'all are doing any auditing of your attendance, please make sure that that all is taken care of now. And when everybody's made all the changes, you're going to come in here to this right here, refresh Premier attendance views. When you do that, you're going to do it for the whole year and you're going to hit submit. And that's going to go through and recalculate DAV values. So if you had some with zeros and they should be ones, after this runs, you should be able to go run a student's attendance profile report and actually see those numbers swap. Then you'll need to let those numbers replicate up to AIM so that we make sure we're capturing your chronic absenteeism correctly. With the amount of FTE changes you might be finding and attendance changes, I highly recommend that you take care of this the day before you run your ELY process. A couple is withdrawing these $49.99 kids going to throw errors on my clean as well as AIM collection? Possibly, Daniel. If you withdraw some back, well, actually no, because $49.99 kids are not captured in file collections, so they should not. They should not. Carrie, do you have to run these reports at the school level or can you run it at the district level? You should be able to run it at the district level, Carrie. It might be harder to disseminate inside of there, but you can. Patrick, and referencing the students, those students were at a school that was 3 to 6, but transferred to a school last year was K2, but now is K5, assuming this. Patrick, I'm not sure. Did I miss something from you? I'm not sure what you're referencing there. Can you give me some more details on that one, Patrick? Roxas. Since we're at the close of the year, should we continue to put excuses in? If those excuses are supposed to be in there from the get go, then yes, you need to make sure in there because those excuses are what determine whether you have a 0 or 1, a present or absent code for those DAV values, which calculate your chronic absenteeism. So you want to make sure that those are correct. Philip, if a school has a Tim Tebow student who is showing up in cohort still, the foreign exchange box needs to be ticked to remove from cohort. The school says it shows student in cohort as a withdrawal, which will equate to a dropout. No, that you don't tick the box, but what you do is you have to withdraw them. Philip, what code did you use to withdraw that Tim Tebow kid? Because unless you use the withdrawal transfer in state, not school, transfer in state, church, or homeschool, that's going to take them out of your cohort. So you have to make sure that was done correctly. And let me go back to Mickey right here. Do I have him still on this page? Well, let's just go here. I see so many people who transfer the Tim Tebow kids out and they use this one, transfer in system. Guys, y'all don't have church and homeschools in your system. They are all state church and homeschools. So Tim Tebow, that's how you transfer them out. That will take them out. It will show them as a withdrawal, but it will show a withdrawal that takes them out of cohort. So that does not count as a dropout for you. And then Wayne overnight. Lisa, where is chronic absenteeism found in Ames? So it's not found in Ames. What you have to do, and I wish I could pull Ames up, but that will show real data. When you go into student data, across the top, you want to look for the prevention and support tab, and you want to scroll down to what's called attendance counts. Attendance counts. Then you want to filter that by those who've had 18 or more absences. That will give you a clue of how many there are, and then you could just divide that by your total number of enrollment to get your chronic absenteeism rate. Now, you can also use the chronic absenteeism page over in Unified Insights, but it's going to be slightly off because Unified Insights is going to show chronic absenteeism for every kid you have enrolled, and Ames does not take into account every kid like your 49.99 kids and things such as that. So keep that in mind. All right, Patrick, those students that are showing up in level data as missing full-time equivalency were enrolled at a school that last year was K2. That same school is now K5. They are being promoted to a school that is now 6th grade only, and the school was actually 3-6 last year. Okay, so what typically happens is that in your FTE, and I would suggest everybody go to all of their schools and check this. Go to your FTE setup page. Look at the grade levels right here. If you have a school, so let's say that this AIS2 school was actually grades 3, 4, 5, and 6. If 6th grade is not part of that setup, then when you enroll, none of those kids got an FTE value, which is going to contribute to all kind of attendance issues. So you want to make sure that in your FTE page, let me go over here and get off this page. And now search. Why is it just showing my reports? School management, scheduling. Full-time equivalencies. Oh, that's why I got to search full-time. When I look here at my equivalency, you see I have all the grade levels checked. When you check your schools, if you have any grade levels unchecked, highly suggest that you check all grade levels that are present on that page. That way, if you enroll any kid in those grade levels at any time, it actually puts the FTE value in there and gives you the codes that it's expecting to. Because again, if you don't have FTE at all on these kids, it's going to throw all kind of issues. these are really items that you want to take care of after end of year. Making sure, again, grades are stored, making sure you have class rank list somewhere saved, that you've got transcripts saved somewhere. Highly recommend, and y'all, I put this in my newsletter a couple of weeks ago. Have your principals, because the counselors, somebody is going to make sure that your kids are all marked correctly to promote, retain, withdraw. If I go back over here to my enterprise reports, and I'm going to search Control F, EOY, there is this grade level validation. Because the worst thing that can happen is that y'all go and you promote, retain, graduate, and you realize you got a whole group of kids that were not done the right way. Now, I'm running this at the high school level, so it's only looking at the high school. And it says, as of right now, I'm showing that 1,186 kids are to be promoted, 327 are to be graduated, 1 is to be demoted, and 1 is to be retained. And maybe I'm sitting here going, I shouldn't be demoting any kids. Who's being demoted? Somebody's not set up right. You can then come down here and look who has been marked to be demoted. And so I look and I got Mr. Webb right here. And if I look, it says his current grade is 99 and it says I'm moving him back to grade 13. Well, is that correct? Am I taking somebody who's graduated and restarting them over? No, that's not right. So we need to make sure that you look at all of those different items to see if you have anything that should be there. Now let me reset it. Maybe I want to check my retentions. So I'm going to come over here and say, well, after end of year, I'm showing that all of these kids are going to be retained. Is this correct? Or, if you got 20 kids listed right there, are those the right 20 kids? Make sure to double check these. So if you need to go update anywhere on a kid, their scheduling set up for school next year or grade next year, you can catch those across the board right here. You can even run this report from the district level to look at how many are supposed to be graduating across the whole district, how many are being promoted, how many being retained, so that y'all can poke your schools to go, hey, so-and-so school, I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to have 300 kids being retained. Somebody didn't set something up right. Make sure this is handled before EOY, because if not, when you run EOY, it's going to put them all in the wrong grade level and you're going to have to manually fix them. Review your data in AIM. This is just a reminder, all of those tiles. So everyone who's, over those tiles, each of federal programs, EL, SIR, they all have their own dates that they actually open the certification window. And a lot of people have been asking, well, when are they going to be open? I know SIR is open right now. Foster, I think, had to be certified by yesterday. The two that you're not going to see certified right now are going to be your cohort and CCR. However, I want you to understand what happens in that state snapshot. Robert, you just asked, can cohort and CCR things be corrected after rollover? Yes. But here's what you need to know. What actually happens with them on June 21st when that snapshot is taken? All of your in and out of cohort freezes. Because basically the only thing that can update on those kids after the state snapshot is their status. Whether they are a graduate, whether they are a completer, or whether they have earned a CCR. But who is in cohort and who is out of cohort is determined by your withdrawal codes, and those have to be correct. When you run your end of year process. Not end of year, when your state snapshot is taken. Because when that state snapshot is taken, it locks those. So definitely, even though you're not certifying your cohort tile, if I could ask y'all to do one thing, this is what it would be. Pull your list of dropouts and withdrawals and check them. See if there's any who you know should be counted as moving on out of cohort and have not. Because there's two big things that I've seen that cause them to stay in your cohort. Number one, student withdraws from you. They go to XYZ school across the street. When that school enrolled them, they used a different SSID number. So in AIM, we never see the kid coming off of you, and we see that other district's got a brand new kid. And you're like, why haven't they moved out of cohort? We've got that video on YouTube to show how to search the state locator. Search the state locator to see if you see that kid. And if you see them with a new SSID, you immediately go ahead, put in a ticket to PowerSchool and have them merge those SSID records so that we picked it back up in AIM. All that needs to be done by next Friday. The other thing that I see are students who have inactive records. So I need to get very technical with this conversation, so y'all stay with me on this one. And I promise I'll come back to these questions y'all are putting in chat. How many of you on here are familiar with searching for enrollment statuses? Enroll_status. I want you to search in your district for everybody who has an enroll_status of 1. I have none. Let's see if I've got any in the district. Just to use it as an example. And if you're in front of your PowerSchool instance, search it right now. I don't have any. How many do you get? Are you getting quite a bit? So if you get some, I would be cautious, not concerned, but cautious. Because typically you never use, oh, that might be why. I didn't think about that. Thank y'all. There we go. Go away here. Use your /. Now I got some. Yes, thank y'all. Told y'all I'm off my game today. All right, so now I have some kids. When you go into one of these records, I want you to look at this up here at the top. It says inactive. Inactive. You need to do some troubleshooting. I want you to come down to the school enrollment. I want you to see what happened with this kid. So this kid was a no-show. And notice it's a no-show in the entry code and the exit code. There is only one thing that triggers that. When you no-show a student from a provisional enrollment. That is the equivalent of doing what is called a soft delete in the state record. The only time a student should be no-showed from provisional enrollment is if it's a student who has never been in your district, wasn't with you last year, and you have them enrolled and they don't ever show up. So they're still in that maybe E90 status or whatever. So you no-show them in there. Because you're right, they were never yours. Then you're not going to take the hit in cohort for them. But let's say this was a kid that you had last year. Maybe it was a sophomore. And we've rolled them into next school year and they didn't show up. So of course you need to no-show them, right? But you don't no-show them for provisional enrollment. You actually need to complete that record, resolve the provisional, and then withdraw them out. They need to be in a transferred out status, which is status 2, enroll_status 2, not inactive. If they are left in an inactive status like this right here, then if they go somewhere else in the state, they do not come off of your cohort report because you have technically soft deleted their enrollment. So we can't see where they're at. Check your inactives. You will need to get the exit code updated to be a true withdrawal out. Maybe they were a dropout. Maybe that's legit and that's what it's going to have to be. But maybe they transferred somewhere else and you need to update that to a transfer out code. And because of these no-shows, sometimes you have to put those tickets in with PowerSchool to get them to help with those because not even through DDA will it let you update some of those. But you need to double check those because we have seen 20, 30 kids be counted incorrectly in cohort because of that inactive record right there. So definitely take a look at those and get them changed to a transferred out enroll status of 2. Now, I've also seen where some people have gone in and tried to, I'm going to use bad words right here, y'all, They try to manually manipulate the system. So instead of going to school enrollment here and using the transfer out of school process, they go, oh, well, I'm just going to go update through student field values their enrollment status to a 2 or to a whatever and put an exit code on there. That does not transfer them out correctly. I tell people it's the same type of people who try to like hand graduate all the kids at the year instead of waiting for the end of year process. Please don't try to fight the natural processes in PowerSchool because it can cause way more harm than making anything easy for you. So make sure that when you are withdrawing students, you're not trying to do it manually through student field values, that you are using the true transfer out process during the school year, and check for those inactives. So you know how to do your search, /enroll_status=1. Now there is one more type, and I don't know if I have any of these, but we'll see. An enroll status of 5, and I don't have any. But those are going to be any duplicates that you had. They should all have an enroll status of 5 that was placed on them when they were cleaned up by PowerSchool support. And that should say inactive. So that's the legit use for inactive. So 2 uses, your duplicates. And I will tell you this, if y'all go into Unified Insights, go to your dashboard and go to the student list and just hit search. I noticed that there are some districts who have kids showing up there with the words do not use or duplicate in their name, which means they were not assigned that enroll status of 5 and 6 and are counting as enrolled students for you. So you want to check those and be careful with them. All right, let me go back because y'all have been lighting up that chat. Let me see where I left off. Corey asked about the actual resolution date. I think Quandria answered that. That's going to be the date the action is actually completed. Tamika, I noticed that class ranking has been removed in the new user interface. Will this function show back? So class ranking's not been removed, Tamika. Are you not able to run the class rank report? Is that what you're saying? Because if you are in the school, now if it's not in the new UI for you, that means somebody's taken away your page permissions for it. But if I just do a search for class rank, there are class rank methods here that will show you. And if you need to run a class rank report, it is still under system reports under grades. There is your class ranking. So the class ranking functionality is still there. If you're not seeing it, that means somebody removed your access to it. Linda, quote the use of refresh premier attendance views data again. So if you are making any changes to attendance, Linda, after the last calendar day of the school year, the DAV values, which is what we use to look at your whether they're absent or present, don't automatically update. So if y'all have made any changes, you want to go in and refresh those views so it recalculates your DAVs and gives the correct 0 or 1 on your students based on the changes you've made. Daniel, so homeless is the only one before run end of year to be cleaned. Homeless and attendance are the 2 things, Daniel. Sorry, targeted assistance. If you are, I need to add that in there because that changed this year. If you have targeted assistance title, kids, on that, let me pull up a kid. I'll go back to Mickey. They added that new verified. It works the same way as homeless now. I'm glad you asked that because I need to add that to the calendar. Mickey Mouse. If I go back to compliance and to federal programs, I'm not a Title I school in my pilot, so I can't show this. But if you are a Title I targeted assistance school, this does not apply to school-wide, folks. So if you're school-wide, ignore this. But if you're targeted assistance, there is a verified. It works just like homeless. They're marked verified, and they have to have their support services entered. That has to be done before end of year rollover, because that as well will reset with the end of year rollover, so that you have to re-verify next year for any targeted assistance Title I entries. So those are the three: homeless, Title I targeted assistance only, and attendance. There is a point of no return after end of year with those three items. Nicole, we had a student who withdrew 3 years ago. She's showing in our cohort in AIM we use WB2. So a couple of things could have happened, Nicole. If the district that enrolled her has a new SSID, that's hanging it up. It's not showing the movement. It could be that the withdrawal was processed in that 2021 school year, which means it would have to be part of a historical data correction. And if that is the case, you will need to send an email with her information or that student's information to Shanitra Dees at the State Department. She is over cohort and will help you go down that route. Linda, is the actual resolution date required if an actual end date is correct? So let's go to, let me pull up discipline here. Yes, you should have 3 dates on all of your behavior records. And I know Level Data has not updated the name, and that's all on me because I have not had time to tell them to update the name after we made the field change. But if I pull up, hang on just a second. This incident. And I go down into the action. There is a begin date, an expected end date, and an actual end date. And all 3 of those should be entered. Begin date, and this used to be called actual resolution date, but that was confusing so many people. So when you enter in a discipline, if you're that assistant principal or principal who's putting that in, the date it starts, the date you expect it to end, and the date it actually ends, because sometimes we know adjustments get made in those. So all 3 of those should be entered. Shanda, what if the gaining school doesn't use PowerSchool for the cohort issue? Well, if it's a public school in the state of Alabama, then they all use PowerSchool. The only one that you might have an issue with is if they go to Alabama School of Math and Science, which is one of those independent schools. There is a code for that. And so you would do transfer out of school, transfer Alabama Independent School. Now, this was just for this year. So if you're seeing a kid that transferred, let's say last year, and went to math and science, or actually any of the independent schools, back then we had to treat them as a private school. So you would mark transfer in state private school for like School of Fine Arts, Deaf and Blind, Math and Science, so forth. Other than that, I would need to know more about what kind of school the gaining school is to figure out which one of these they need to go to. Beneath, what if the no-show is for a past school year? Honestly, Beneath, that record's already been processed at the state level, so the ones you need to worry about are the ones that were from this year. If it's somebody who's hanging you up in cohort, now that's a different story. You would need to put in a ticket with PowerSchool and help get those corrected to the correct enrollment status code and transfer out code. Chesley, I have one enrolled on 9-6 and withdrew on 9-6, WD8. So that's basically that you no-showed them. So that now WD8 would mean that they're a pre-K kid that was private school, that was services only, and that's perfectly fine to have that. So is there a concern with that one, Chesley? Because that's okay to have. Oh, if they already show a withdrawal code but are inactive, then you want to flip. You want to go to student field values, and you want to flip inactive to enroll status 2, so it shows transferred out with that code. So is that what you were asking, Chesley, on the 9-6 one? If you have if the withdrawal looks great, so if I go to the school enrollment and this all looks good with the right exit codes, but it says inactive, you just need to flip the enrollment status on those. Could you do the enroll status again? It's / enroll status 1 because they're inactive. They are inactive records looking for an inactive status. So we have to use the / enroll _ status = 1. And that'll tell you any that you have. And you can search by district or by school on those to take a look at. Marion, is that for no show only? What about other codes? Or other codes legitimate? So if you've got the other codes, Marion, that's just like I was talking about, you're fine on those, but you do need to update that enrollment status to be something other than a 1, because that should only be used for those true provisional no-shows of kids that's never been with you before, coming from another district, or from those duplicates that they are merging. Ben, what are the accurate exit codes that will tag them as inactive other than the NS? That's the only one, Ben. When it comes to the duplicate resolution, I don't know that they're actually putting a code. They might be. I don't know what they're using, but if you know it's a duplicate, so you got the do not use or duplicate in the name, it really doesn't matter what the code is, as long as that enroll status is 5 on all of those. But other than that, it's really just the no-show that you should see on the others. Just the no-show that is provisional, not your regular no-show. So like if I had, Stacy, who was with me last year, and then this year she was a no-show, then yeah, you can have an exit code of no-show. Don't flip that enrollment status to inactive. It's only for kids who you've never had before that came in and didn't show up. That would have been a provisional enrollment. And really, those being transferred out and having the no-show is still fine as well. It's only the ones that if you are using the no-show functionality in provisional enrollment to keep them from coming in, that's where we can get into some hiccups from. If you are actually enrolling all of your kids and then doing no-shows from those active records, then you're going to be fine. Don't worry about that enrollment status. It should be a 2 out of the gate doing it that way. Brian, all of mine are from 2021 and mostly in lower grades in previous years. Honestly, Brian, no. You're fine. It's going to be mainly a lot of high schoolers that are tangling up cohort that's causing that. Richard, so do I need to go ahead and transfer out all the students I got with the NS1 that fit your description? So if they are NS1, they should already be they're already transferred out if it's got the inactive marked in there. It's just it was done incorrectly, so those inactives need to be swapped to transferred out unless it is a true provisional no-show. So when you go look at that, are you seeing enrollment records? Let me see if I can find one that. See, these are just duplicates. So that record needs to be deleted because it's a duplicate of here. But this would be an example of a legit no-show because they've never been with me before. They said they were coming to school but didn't show up, so we no-showed them from provisional and they're inactive. Perfectly okay. But if I look at this record and I see they were with me for the last 3 years or even just last year and they've been marked inactive, that's an issue. If they've got previous enrollment records with you, you know they've been your student before, they really shouldn't be listed as inactive in any way whatsoever, unless it's a duplicate record. Phyllis, can you repeat how to correct the status of one? So that is going to be a student field value update. So if I have determined that, I've gone through my list of my ones and I've realized, okay, let me select by hand. These kids here actually should be in a transferred out status, not in an inactive status. Then I'm just going to select those kids and I'm going to do student field value changes. And I'm going to use enroll underscore status equals 2. Those need to be in a true transferred out status. And so it says, hey, it was a 1. Are you sure you want to move it to a 2? The answer would be yes. And that will take care of it. Jackie, I searched enroll status of 1, have 500 students there. Whoo, Jackie, that's not good. I looked at the first one and they have a withdrawal as a WB1 and no overlapping dates. That That's a good question. I'm not sure what the person did. I've had to go through audit logs before, but when we had contention over in cohort, somebody's not doing something correct when they're withdrawing, because that enroll status should be a 2 on those if they've got any kind of code other than NS on there right out of the gate. That tells me people are probably doing things manually through student field values instead of transferring them out when they're performing the withdrawal. So you might want to have a conversation on that. But you need to take a look at those and get those swapped, doing what I just said with the student field value updates to a 2 if they have legit withdrawal codes, because we are not seeing those withdrawal codes at the state to show that they should be moving on somewhere else or out of your cohort. PowerSchool created the do not use students when I asked them to resolve duplicates. Yes, that's what they're supposed to do, Tiffany. What do you need to do? Well, it depends on what error are you seeing with them. Are you not seeing them with an enroll status of 5? If they're showing as an enroll status of something else, then you need to update those duplicates to be an enroll status of 5. Brenda, how do I locate the state locator? I'm going to put the link to the video. It's basically search and enrollment. Oh, let me get to the search students across the state. Here we go. This video right here will show you how you can search what we say is the state locator, and it's basically just searching through enrollment. Erica, are we only looking for no-show? What are we looking for when we do? So I think I've gone through all of that. And if y'all have any questions, y'all know, just shoot me an email and we'll help figure that out. So what if they have the no-show because the wrong kid was picked from state locator or the student did not show? Do we transfer them out, and how do we know what code to use if they never came? Shelly, was a kid there with you before? If they were there with you before, then you need to have, I mean, it could be that it is a no-show record. But if it's inactive, it needs to be swapped to transferred out, because that's not an inactive record. It should be showing as a no-show. If they pick the wrong from state, we might need to look more in that situation, because I'm thinking that might need to stay as an NS. So send me something on that, Shelly. Most of mine are from 2021 that are enrolled 1. So what are those since it's not the first year? I only have one this year. Student was enrolled to test, and mom decided student wasn't coming, so a 0 day. When you say, okay, so if it was a WD under mandatory age, Chesley, yeah, you want to make sure, swap that enrollment status to a 2. The WD9 will make sure they don't show up as dropout or anything. Katie, if we have duplicates, can we change your enrollment status to 5? So, Katie, if you have duplicates, you need to put those in as PowerSchool support tickets. Let them merge the tables together, the data in the tables together, and then have those set to 5. Now, if all that merging has been done and it's just they forgot to set the enroll status to 5 on that duplicate record, yes, you can go in and update that. And Shanitra just reinforced what I said, that WB4 code is only active for this year. So if you use those independent schools in previous years, you have to use the private school code. And yep, Chandra, it was math and science. Y'all can tell I'm way behind on these. What enroll status to the DNU accounts? The do not use account should be enroll status 5, Lynn. And I showed that. All right, Erica, we have one student that's on our cohort, but we've learned that he was transferred to an out-of-state school. I changed him to WC1 and DDA, but it's still showing up. WB1 and aim after it. So what year did that withdrawal take place, Erica? Because if it was before the 21 school year, that's going to have to be a historical change, and you'll need to email that to Shanitra. If it's like current year, since we've been moved over to PowerSchool, it might be that some help and aim has to happen. So I would say email that to Shanitra, because she can kind of look at the backside of it to see what we need to do with that. For students who have a D withdrawal code but show up as inactive, do we just split them to enroll status of 2, or do we do a transfer out? Now, you don't need to transfer them out because they're inactive. It's not going to let you transfer them out. If they had been in an active status, you would transfer them out. If they are showing up as inactive, you just need to flip that enroll status to a 2 at this point. I was saying that when y'all are processing transfers in the school year, you need to make sure people are using a transfer out process, not doing manual changes of the fields to make it look like they're no longer in school. Yeah, that's very interesting, Ben. If y'all got a lot of 2021 records that are D codes or WD8 set as inactive, because if they've got an actual transfer out code, they really shouldn't be inactive. Now, for the ones from 2019 and earlier, we're way past those cohorts in reporting, so I wouldn't even fool with those. A student started the year with us, went to a facility for a few weeks, and then came back. How should we do that as far as withdrawing and re-enrolling? So you would have to withdraw them as of the date that they started that facility, and then re-enroll them in as of the date they came back to you. So you would have 2 records on them. All right, Sonia, we have over 20,000 errors in level data, report list, attendance daily. Student unexcused absence details, enter a ticket and they don't know, said it might be a level data call. Sonia, send me some screenshots of what you're seeing in that so I can kind of dig into that one a little bit. Because usually the report list are not errors. Those are just giving you information. Anything that is over here, anything on this report list is not errors. Like if you're getting it on one of these and you're getting 20,000, it's just telling you these are how many unexcused absences have been entered across the district on kids. So if you got 20,000 there, that's not an error. These are just a way for you to get a quick list of numbers if you needed them. When I try to re-enroll with the correct date they came back, it's not allowing me to do that. What is it telling you that's on that date when you try to re-enroll that student? It could be that the other district they're at has not withdrawn them, so it's saying there's an overlap. In that case, you're going to need to get in touch with that district that they're coming from, and y'all work together to figure out what date so that they can have their withdrawal date not conflict with your enrollment date. We see a lot of that. All right, going back to this, make sure that you have all of your information entered on your seniors. You know, make sure that they have got a civics exam score. Either they passed it, they failed it, or they have a waiver for it. There are directions here on how to enter that and how to pull reports on it. FAFSA information. Make sure the graduation exit type is on there. This one's going to be a huge one. Make sure CRIs right here. Ensure that no student appears with graduates missing school enrollment after the end of year. Okay, so end of year starts. Y'all can start pressing buttons today. The day you press your button to run end of year, the very next day, you need to go immediately over to state collections and look at your error list. And if you have any that are showing graduates missing in enrollment at school, that means somebody has processed that manually and you're going to have to correct it. And there's a video right here where it says must be addressed to show you how to correctly graduate a student that was incorrectly graduated. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you take a look at that. Now, let's talk about the actual end of year process. That is run at district level. And a lot of people are going, where do I find that in the new UI? And yes, we will be updating the Alabama version of the document to give you screenshots for the new UI. But it's just finding the page. And if you type in end hyphen, you got to put that hyphen or it doesn't show up in there. You're going to see end of year processing. This takes you to the page for where you will run your end of year process. Now, with everything that I've shown you kind of all of the big things. of what to check and make sure you have data entered. But there is actually a validation here. Now, when you are on this screen, and y'all, there is a picture of this in the Alabama Guide, and people are still messing this up. Your codes here and all of this should look exactly like mine. I need you to go check your end of year page in PowerSchool. Take a screenshot of this if you want to. But this right here should look exactly like mine. I have people who are putting a G01 code and all kind of stuff that is going to cause you tons of errors after you process EOY if these are not the codes that you have. Graduating should be the graduated G code. Promotions should be promoted P, promoted with same school P, retained and demoted should both be the R's. Nothing else should be on there. There are 3 different options right here. There is perform EOY validation, perform the validation, and any kids on the list make them a current selection, and then actually perform the process. You want to first run this validation because this is going to tell you, do you have any issues with kids that are still enrolled? Have you not withdrawn out your kids? If you accept cross-enrolled students in your district, like you have a career tech center that kids from another district come into, you got to make sure they're enrolled out or they're going to be on here. This will tell you if any kid had their next school blank or their next grade blank, or somebody's still in provisional enrollment, because you have to clear all provisional enrollments before you can run this. It's only going to show you a very short list of errors. And as soon as you finish those, you go run it again and it'll populate another until you get no errors on here. You're going to need to be doing your validations and then keep rerunning. When you get a clear validation list and you know you've put all your state data in, attendance data, and it's replicated to AIM, at that point, you can go back to the end of your processing screen and actually perform the true end of your process. So the process to do it is not hard at all, but all of the making sure you've got everything done ahead of time and it's counting correctly need to be taken care of. Had a couple more. Is there a report to see students who do not have a civics exam entered? Yes, we have an enterprise report for that. So if I go over here, and it can be searched at the district or at the school. If I go into data and reporting and enterprise reports, and I search civic, oh, actually, it's on the base cohort one. It's this one. So this one is what I call my seniors at a view, because it'll tell me anybody that doesn't have a base cohort year entered, or it's not possibly the right one. It gives you a way to check who's got CCRs entered, who's got FAFSA information entered, civics exam, has score and has no score. So I can tell you right now, 4 of my kids have a score and 425 do not. So if I needed to know who did not have that exam, I could then filter. Notice we give you all 5 of these reports. So if I want to look at the actual test scores for civics, and notice we've gone ahead and prepped you with the financial literacy, even though that's not required this year, we've gone ahead and put it in here. I can see here are all of my kids who had a score and had pass fail. Like, this is an issue. This right here should just say pass or fail, all in capitals. So if I see anything other than that, somebody imported or put a wrong grade in, and that kid's not going to count at the state level for you the right way. So definitely take a look at this report right here so that you can see if you have any issues. Amanda, oh, my screen is like flickering on me. Enrolled with us but withdrew is 4/10/24. The advice from PowerSchool was to no-show them, from which I did. Yeah, that's going to be an enrollment in error. And y'all, here's something that I always have to, it's a hard conversation to have because I've had to have it with superintendents even. If you accidentally enroll the wrong kid, or you enroll a kid and then you realize, oh, they don't live in district, so we need them out so they don't count in cohort, or you use one of those test kids because you're a new enrollment customer, y'all, once those kids hit cohort, you can't get them out. Those kind of mistakes don't come out of cohort. So you've got to be very, very intentional in talking with your registrars to make sure when you enroll a kid, you've done your due diligence of what you're supposed to get that enrollment in there. That if you enroll a kid, you make sure you're pulling the right kid. If you are enrolling and you're checking residency, you can go ahead and give them the enrollment paperwork, put them in a class. But if you know you have to check, don't put them in PowerSchool until you've done all your checks to get them in PowerSchool. You can still hand schedule and stuff like that. Because we've had many times kids have ended up in cohort and there's nothing IS can do to take the kids out that were incorrectly put in. What PowerSchool said about no showing them is going to be right because the kid wasn't there with you, but as far as them coming out of cohort, there's not going to be anything to do there. Carla, just to double check, I have 39 students that have do not use in their name that show as inactive. When I go in to change enroll status to 5, they are already showing 5. But they showed up in an enroll status of 1. That's interesting. I'm not sure why they would show under a 1 if they're a 5. That's a good one, Carla. But if they're if you've got them with a 5 already, just leave them and move on. Karen, I was looking at this today with one of my high school and FAFSA status wasn't showing up, and we verified it was on the student. So what I have seen in the is where people did it through student field values and they used the wrong ID. And so if that happens, you would need to make sure that whatever code, like I would try to go to student field values to update that status and see what code is on the kid, because if it's not the correct code, it might look like the data's there, but it's not there in the table the way the state needs to read it. So let me show you what I'm talking about. If I go to let's go to Mickey again. If you are entering this information from the drop down, it's always going to be right. So F02. Okay, so Mickey is a F02 right here. So submit. Now, if I come over here to Mickey, and this also happens with graduation exit type, we see these things. If I change student field value and I want waiver type to be F01. You see how it tells me my old waiver type was this, but I'm trying to enter this? This uses a code set ID. If your person was actually entering in this, then it's going to look like the data is there, but it is not going to be read from the table and won't display in a state pool. And that could be what's going on. So you've got to make sure if they are using student field values to update this, that they're using the correct code set ID. And I've got directions on how to find those and make sure that those are right for your district, because they are very specific for your district, Karen. So I would take a look at that. Corey, graduation exit type can be done in mass as well. I have, where's my, here we go. Let me, where did I put it at? No, my screens are blinking and it's making updating student data. On the updated student data page, here is your directions on how to mass import waiver. Here are your directions on how to mass import graduation exit type, how to mass update CCR, how to mass update Numeracy Act, Literacy Act. You know, you got to make sure that stuff's in there too. So all your mass updating stuff is going to be found on that page on your PowerSchool site. What is the students to move not graduated when looking at student setup description during E? Students to move. On the EOY validation here. Oh, let me perform the validation. It should. Well, that's a good question. Is that new this year? See if we can find it real quick. I know at one time one of those was giving us the same thing as like graduated and promoted together. I wonder if that's it. No. Sean, I will find out and let you know on that one because I'm not sure, to be honest with you, on what that is. Um, 320. I wonder. 740. None of those numbers would add up to 740. I will find out. Where was the civics report? That is an enterprise report. Once the year's rolled over, live side scheduling pretty much began immediately, correct? You can actually work on live side scheduling now, Patrick, if you wanted to. One of the things you have to remember is that in order to do anything on live side scheduling, that you've got to have the calendar set up. So just make sure you have that set up at the school. If my master schedule is correct as it can be at this point, can I go ahead and commit the schedule and work student schedules after EOI? Absolutely, you can. Deborah, I'll be sending this video out. So everybody who got the email about the invite to register for the meeting, I'll have it on there. Plus, I'll put it in my newsletter next week so that you'll have it on Monday. But as soon as we stop the video, it'll render, and hopefully I can get it out tomorrow morning to you. Yes, Sherry, I would update that to a transfer out instead of an inactive on that one. Oh, Sean, that could be it. They're moving up in grade and having to go to a new school. Oh, that would make 100% sense because you're moving because it's not just promoting them, it's promoting them and going to a new school. I almost guarantee you that's exactly what it is. That's why it linked me to the article about preparing and setting the next school. Calendar setup is after EOI, correct? Not necessarily, Nicole. Calendar setup, if you're using Power Scheduler, is done after Power Scheduler is committed or it'll wipe it. But you're good if you're not using Power Scheduler to go ahead and set up your calendar if you want to. EOY doesn't hurt that one. All right, y'all, we have gone through a ton of information. Is there anything else that y'all can think of you have questions on? Because those are kind of the high points. Hopefully y'all are ready. Or is anybody ready to go ahead and press that button? I know there were a few districts who were going ahead and doing it today. Patrick, I pressed it. Brian, I thought I was. I know it's one of those where you want to make sure that you've done as much. Can you show how to review attendance? Or you mean to do the refresh Premier attendance view, Charlene? Is that what you're talking about? Oh, yeah. So, go back to the school. When you go to attendance, and it's this one, the refresh Premier attendance views right there. That's where you'll do it and reset your DAVs. Y'all, if I were y'all, I would just go ahead and press that thing anyway, just so if anybody has made changes and hadn't told you, you're going ahead and recalculating DAVs. Do that today. Now, here's the thing. It takes 2 days for this to show up in AIM because our state poll starts at 7 o'clock at night. The regeneration of DAV values happens at like 9 o'clock at night. So when we collect data tonight, it won't be any changes that occur at 9. Those will be picked up in tomorrow's run. So y'all keep that in mind about how that data replicates. Landon, where is base cohort year again? Oh, for the where it is on the student record, Landon. If I go to mouse and go to demographics, scroll to the bottom, you got the base cohort. Always look at the history. If you're seeing a kid who is not like showing in the right cohort, it could be that you've got a bad entry of which one is the cohort year. Because remember when you enroll a kid into PowerSchool, if it doesn't see a base cohort coming from the other school, it will just tag the current year as the base cohort year, and you do have to come in here and delete that out and put the correct one on there. So make sure that you have that as part of your enrollment process, that you're checking your cohort history with your kids. And remember, cohort is not based on when a kid actually graduates. It's whatever their first year of ninth grade was. So you kind of have to look at those transcripts and make sure that that is correct. Counselor can go ahead and work on the live side after EOI. Yep, they can. EOI can be completed as soon as homeless attendance and TA are for sure correct. The other tiles can be certified after EOI. That is correct, Tiffany. Yeah, I'll tell you, the enroll status issue is something that really came about, we saw after certification last year. And we spent a lot of time at the beginning of the year this year having to reprocess some files for districts when we discovered this is what some districts were doing. So I wanted to make sure to give a heads up on that for this year. And start next year, we're really going to kind of hammer that in as we go month by month training with it. All right, anything else from anyone? Just know if you find anything weird or abnormal, email me, email the PowerSchool coaches. I know we'll be down at AETC next week with a lot of people if you're not running it next week. I will go ahead and tell y'all on Friday, I will start pulling lists to see who's run EOI and who is not, and start sending gentle nudges to remind people that it has to be done by next Tuesday. And then on Monday, any that hasn't run it, we'll start including superintendents on that. So just be prepared that if you're waiting until the last day to do it, I'd be cautious in doing that because that gives you fewer days to check for any errors that happen in AIM because of something not being set correctly. But you're all good. Daniel, how bad is it if we run it before enroll status is done? That's okay, Daniel, because you can still update that after EOI. The only 3 things that lock are homeless, foster, and attendance. Everything else you can keep working on after you run EOI. Just make sure you have all that cleaned up before next Friday when they do the state pools. Shelly, do we need to certify the certile before end of year? No, that can be certified afterward. In fact, I think y'all have until the 24th to certify that. It'll snapshot on Friday next week, but you have until the 24th. If we refresh attendance today, we can't run India till Wednesday. What is today? Today is Tuesday. So if you refresh today, I would say hold off till Thursday morning. And remember, I will give this tidbit, when you're running EOLY, do it kind of at an off peak time. Don't do it in the middle of the day when you got all your users in. You don't want them to be in there. Do it really early in the morning if you're the person who presses the button before folks come in, or stay after one day and do it. I've had people do it on the weekends, things such as that. Y'all just kind of set that up what's best for your district so that you can run that. But it should all go well. PowerSchool support is on the standby. They know that this is our critical week. So if you need anything, you can always put in a support ticket, and their team is all on it. All right, well, I'm gonna stop the recording so it can start rendering.